In the Wheel of Time, male channelers walk a narrow path between salvation and destruction. Some are heroes, some are monsters, all are dangerous. But who were the most powerful of them all? We're unraveling the might of the greatest male channelers in history. 1. Lews Therin Telamon. Lews Therin Telamon was not just powerful, he was the pinnacle of what it meant to be a channeler in the Age of Legends. Known as the Dragon, he led the forces of light during the War of Power, held titles that made kings seem insignificant, and wielded the one power with precision and authority that made others tremble. His raw strength was rivaled only by his mastery. But what truly made Lews Therin terrifying was his command of Choedan and his strategic brilliance. He didn't just fight the shadow, he nearly sealed it away for good. His decision to leave the 100 companions in the strike at Choedan Kal was an act of unmatched courage and desperation. Though it led to the tainting of Choedan and the breaking of the world, it also revealed the scope of his power. No one else could have come so close to ending the Dark One's influence outright. Lews Therin's power wasn't just in destruction, it was in shaping the pattern itself. Even long after his death, his influence rippled through time. But power like his didn't come without consequences. When madness overtook him, he killed everyone he loved in a moment of unimaginable grief, earning the name Kinslayer. The one power in his hands was both a tool of salvation and annihilation. That duality is what makes him the most powerful channeler of the age, and also its most tragic. 2. Rand al'Thor. Rand al'Thor was not merely a reincarnation of Lews Therin. He was a new soul carrying an old fire. And in the turning of the wheel, he was perhaps even greater than his predecessor. Rand began as a farm boy, terrified of his own abilities, but by the end of the series, he could command the power with a thought, wield Calendar, use the Choedan Kal, and even touch the true power when the pattern demanded it. His strength was unimaginable, but it was his evolution that truly defined him. Rand's power wasn't just about force, it was about complexity. He mastered Choedan faster than anyone in recorded memory. He wove balefire so massive it scorched the pattern. He created wards, traveled great distances, fought multiple Forsaken, and performed feats thought impossible, cleansing Choedan of the Dark One's taint alongside Nynaeve. And when the last battle came, he didn't win with fire and death, but by stepping beyond the weave entirely. He wove reality. The duel with Moridin in the cavern at Choedan Kal was not just the most powerful battle in the series, it was a metaphysical turning point. Rand reached into something beyond strength, beyond identity, and reshaped the world itself. And then he walked away, his body dead, its soul alive in a new form, free at last from prophecy. No one in the Third Age matched Rand's command of the power, not Logain, not Taim, not even the Forsaken. But what truly set him apart wasn't just his channeling. It was that, in the end, he chose to stop, to give it up. Because the only thing more powerful than wielding Choedan is mastering the self that wields it. 3. Moridin. Once Ellen Morin Tedronai, then Ishamael, then Moridin. He was the only Forsaken who understood the true stakes of the war between light and shadow. His power was second only to Lews Therin, and his rebirth as Moridin by the Dark One granted him access to both Choedan and the true power. He became a force of destruction unbound by morality or limitation, able to manipulate threads of fate themselves. Moridin's signature was the true power, the Dark One's gift. With it, he wove black threads of annihilation, used compulsion so subtle it bypassed the three oaths, and accessed gateways and flows unseen by others. His ability to link with Rand, unintentionally or not, turned their fates into a braid of paradox. When Rand suffered, Moridin did. When one acted, the other felt it. It was a reflection of the pattern's deep irony, that salvation and destruction often wear the same face. Unlike other Forsaken, Moridin didn't crave personal rule. He craved oblivion. He didn't want to win. He wanted to end the game entirely. That ideology, combined with his strength, made him the most dangerous being in the world. He fought in the shadows for most of the series, pulling strings others couldn't even see. But when he finally emerged, he was unrecognizable, haunted, hollow, and broken by the very nautilism he thought empowered him. In the end, his body became Rand's vessel. The soul that wanted to unmake the pattern became the shell that preserved it. And with that inversion, Moridin's story ends in poetic justice. The destroyer used to remake the world. 4. Logain Ablar. Logain Ablar begins his journey in the Wheel of Time as a cautionary tale. A man who declares himself the Dragon Reborn, gathers followers, and is eventually captured by the Aes Sedai and Genhald. But his arc is not one of delusion. It's one of restoration, transformation, and ultimately, redemption. Because what seemed like a fall from grace becomes a rise to something just as significant as Rand's destiny, perhaps even more enduring. When Logain is healed by Nynaeve, a feat once thought impossible, he not only regains his ability to channel, but comes back stronger. And in that strength, he finds purpose. At the Black Tower, he emerges as a leader, a rival to Mazrim Taim, and a symbol of controlled strength. He doesn't burn with madness or ambition like other male channelers. He carries the one power with a calm, regal weight, never flashy, but always lethal. What sets Logain apart is his balance. He channels vast amounts of Therin, leads the Ashaman, resists compulsion, and even in the thick of the last battle, his control remains unbroken. His duel with Taim, one of the most powerful and corrupted male channelers alive, is a highlight of the final book. Logain wins not just with strength, but with clarity of mind, resilience, and purpose. But perhaps the most telling moment comes after the battle, when Logain walks from the ruins with a broken body and an unshattered will. He doesn't seek glory, he seeks justice, and in that quiet determination, he becomes a new kind of dragon, not the one reborn by prophecy, but the one forged by fire and proven in shadow. 5. Mazrim Taim. Taim enters the story as a dark mirror to Rand, a male channeler, powerful and charismatic, claiming the name of Dragon Reborn. Unlike Logain, his power is immediately terrifying. He's already trained, already dangerous, and clearly touched by the taint on Therin. But what begins as ambiguity quickly twists into something more sinister. Taim doesn't just seek control, he relishes it. As Rand's appointed head of the Black Tower, Taim builds an empire within an empire. He grooms male channelers not for protection or balance, but for war, submission, and domination. His strength with Therin is immense, his control over others is absolute, and behind his polite exterior lies a predator, watchful, hungry, and slowly slipping into darkness. Taim's true nature is finally confirmed when he is revealed as Hale, newly raised as one of the Forsaken. In this form, he gains access to the true power, merges ideology with chaos, and becomes a vessel for the Shadow's future. At the last battle, he is a nightmare unleashed, wielding power that rivals the great generals of the Age of Legends. But power isn't enough. Taim is ultimately undone by Logain, his former rival. Their clash is a duel not just of strength, but of leadership, philosophy, and soul. Taim dies consumed by the very ambition that once made him invincible. He could have been a savior. Instead, he became a monster. And in that transformation, he proves that strength alone is never the final measure. It's how you use it, and who you become when the world bends around your will. 6. Androl Genhald. By traditional metrics, Androl Genhald shouldn't belong on a list of the strongest male channelers. His raw strength into one power is laughable compared to Rand, Logain, or even second-tier Ashaman. But the Wheel of Time doesn't measure greatness only by fireballs and force. It measures it by skill, innovation, and the ability to shape the pattern in ways no one else can. And Androl does that better than almost anyone. Androl's affinity for gateways makes him unique. He can create them faster, more precisely, and in conditions where others can't even begin to weave. His ability to link, to reinforce, to manipulate the battlefield with clever uses of Therin changes the course of multiple engagements. In the defense of the Black Tower, he becomes the fulcrum, transporting troops, countering Forsaken, and outwitting the enemies who underestimate him. His defeat of Taim's forces and his central role in exposing the Black Anja within the tower show that power is more than strength. It's versatility, courage, and timing. Androl becomes a general, not because he's the strongest, but because he thinks differently. He sees Therin not as a weapon, but as a tool, and with it, he builds bridges, traps enemies, and protects those around him. In a world obsessed with magnitude, Androl reminds us that finesse is a power all its own. And sometimes, the channeler with the smallest flame burns the brightest in the darkest hour. 7. Guaire Amalasan. Before Rand al'Thor's name was whispered across the Westlands, and long before the Ashaman carved their place into history, there was Guaire Amalasan, a man who dared to claim the name of Dragon Reborn, and nearly proved the world right to fear it. His legend erupted nearly 1,000 years before the story of the Wheel of Time begins, when he rose from the obscurity of a borderland province and swept across the continent like a wildfire. But this wasn't just the march of a deluded channeler. It was a revelation of what a man with unrestrained access to Therin, a fanatical belief in destiny, and an unmatched military mind could truly become. Guaire didn't simply gather followers, he built an empire. He didn't stumble upon power, he wielded it with terrifying certainty. Unlike many so-called false dragons, Guaire Amalasan's claim wasn't dismissed as madness. He had the strength to back it up. His feats with the One Power were unparalleled in his time. Entire nations fell into his orbit not out of fear, but out of awe. His charisma was legend, his confidence absolute, and his victories swift and brutal. The Aes Sedai couldn't stop him. Local rulers couldn't contain him. It took nothing less than the full strategic brilliance of Archer Hawkwing, already a rising force of history himself, to halt Guaire's momentum. The war was not easily won. Amalasan's forces clashed with Hawkwing's in battles of legend, where power and steel met on scorched fields. And even in defeat, Guaire's legacy endured, his memory seared into the minds of those who witnessed what he almost achieved. His downfall didn't come because he was weak. It came because Hawkwing was stronger, and even then, only barely. Guaire Amalasan wasn't just defeated, he was captured, tried, and gentled by the Aes Sedai, in what became a turning point in Tower history. After him, no male channeler was ever viewed the same way again. The Tower's policy of immediate, ruthless pursuit of any man who could channel became doctrine. Nations revised their laws. Armies began preparing for threats that hadn't even risen yet. Guaire's campaign may have ended with his death, but his influence did not. Every time the world trembled at the rise of a male channeler after him, from Taim to Logain to Rand, it was his shadow that loomed largest. There is a particular tragedy in Guaire Amalasan's story. He may have believed he was the Dragon Reborn, but he was not the man destined to save the world. Still, he changed it, proving that prophecy isn't the only force that moves the pattern. He left behind a world that feared power more than it understood it, and in doing so, ensured that the true dragon, when he came, would be hunted just the same. His legacy is not written in victory, but in precedent, and sometimes that's more dangerous than triumph. 8. Jain Farstrider. Though Jain Farstrider never touched the One Power, his story runs parallel to those who did. He traveled through nations and across borders, chronicling the remnants of magic, war, and broken civilizations left behind by male channelers. His adventures, immortalized in the book The Travels of Jain Farstrider, became part myth, part history, and through them, he preserved what raw strength often destroyed: memory. Jain's greatness lies not in wielding the power, but in witnessing it. He walked where legends once fought. He passed through shattered cities, dead blight-infested ruins, and forgotten battlefields that once burned with Satan's fury. In his quiet way, he catalogued the consequences of power. In doing so, he reminded the world of the cost of forgetting, and ultimately, his story takes a final, fated turn, revealed to be Logain, a broken, fading version of the legend he once was. Jain gives his life in the Tower of Genhald, so Matt and Tom can rescue Moridin. His sacrifice has no fire, no weaves, no channeling, but it saves the world just the same. Jain Farstrider teaches us that true strength isn't always about force. Sometimes it's about remembering, surviving, and standing when you're forgotten. And in the Wheel of Time, that kind of strength can change the pattern too. 9. The male Choedan Kal. Among the greatest tools ever built for channeling the One Power were the Choedan Kal, twin sangreal crafted in the Age of Legends, capable of channeling more power than any individual had ever wielded. One was made for a woman, the other for a man, and that male half of the Choedan Kal would go untouched for millennia, until Rand al'Thor came. With it, Rand didn't simply burn cities or blast armies. He performed the impossible, alongside Nynaeve, and using the full force of the male Choedan Kal, he cleans Satan of the Dark One's taint. This act did more than restore sanity to the men who could channel. It restored balance. It proved that the power itself was not evil, only wounded. The scale of this act placed Rand not only as a wielder of strength, but as a healer of the pattern itself. The male Choedan Kal made this possible, channeling more energy than even the dragon could handle without it. And then, in one of Rand's most powerful moments of restraint, he destroyed it. Knowing that such power should not exist unchecked, he severed the connection to the sangreal. It was a god's weapon, and he chose to walk away. The Choedan Kal represents not just ultimate strength, but the wisdom required to release it. In that choice, we see what makes a true master of the power, not the ability to wield it, but the ability to let it go. Final thoughts. What does it mean to be the strongest? Is it raw might? How much power you can channel? How many enemies you can destroy? Or is it something deeper? How you carry that power? How you resist the madness it brings? And what you choose to build rather than burn? In a wheel of time, the strongest male channelers are not simply those who cause the most destruction. They are the ones who endure, who sacrifice, who see the power not as a prize, but as a burden. Rand al'Thor remakes the world but walks away. Lews Therin sacrifices everything and becomes a cautionary tale. Logain carries strength with sorrow. Androl rewrites what power means. Even villains like Moridin and Taim force us to ask whether power without purpose is strength at all, or just noise before the end. The world remembers their names not because they burned the brightest, but because they changed everything. And when the wheel turns again, it will be their echoes we hear, in fire, in light, in silence.